Platform engineering, DevOps, SRE. Three terms that get used like they mean the same thing, and three disciplines that actually do very different work. If you've ever sat in a meeting where one person says DevOps and another person says platform engineering, and you're not sure if they're talking about the same job, this video is for you. Hey, I'm Adora. I've spent years leading platform engineering teams, and this channel is where I share what I'm learning leading engineers in the AI era. Let's get into it. Let's start with DevOps because it came first. DevOps started around 2009 as a cultural movement. The core idea was that developers and operations shouldn't be two separate teams throwing work over a wall at each other. They should share responsibility, right? Developers should care about what happens in production, and operations should think more like developers. That was basically it. It was never really a job title at the start. It was a way of working. Then companies started hiring DevOps engineers, and the title became this catch-all for anyone who worked on automation, CI/CD pipelines, infrastructure as code, or anything that lived between dev and ops. So today, when someone says DevOps, they usually mean one of two things, right? Either the broader cultural practice of dev and ops collaborating closely, or a specific role that handles deployment pipelines, infrastructure automation, and tooling. The strength of DevOps is the principle: shared responsibility, faster feedback loops, and automation everywhere. The problem with how DevOps got implemented in a lot of places is that it loaded too much onto like individual engineers. So you ended up with developers who were also expected to be experts in Kubernetes, Terraform, CI/CD, observability, security, networking, a lot of all these things. And to be honest, the cognitive load was a lot. SRE, which is Site Reliability Engineering, came from Google. They published an SRE book in 2016, but the practice had been running internally for years before that. The core idea around SRE, right, is that you treat operations as a software engineering problem. Instead of having an ops team that manually keeps systems running, you have engineers who write code to make systems reliable at scale. SRE is very specific. It's focused on reliability. So think things like uptime, latency, error rates, and capacity planning. SREs work with concepts like service level objectives, error budgets, and toil reduction. They're the people responsible for making sure that your systems don't fall over when you have millions of users hitting them at once. So when you think of SRE, the core function that I want you to have in your head is reliability, right? The strength of SRE is the rigor. So it brings actual engineering discipline to operations. So you measure things, you set objectives, you decide what's reliable enough and what isn't. The challenge is that SRE is narrow by design. It's about keeping things running well. So it doesn't really cover developer experience, internal tooling, or building products for your engineers. That's not what SRE is for. Platform engineering, on the other hand, is the newest of all the three. So when you think DevOps, SRE, and platform engineering is the newest. It's pretty new, actually, just a couple years in, and it builds on top of both DevOps and SRE. The core idea is that you build internal tools and infrastructure for your own engineers the same way you build a product for external customers. Engineers are your users, so you are building for them. You give your engineers roadmaps, give them success metrics, and you apply real product thinking to the platforms as you build them. And so, like where DevOps says everyone should share responsibility, platform engineering says let's have a small team of specialists who abstract away the complexity so the rest of the org can focus on shipping products. You don't need every engineer to be an expert in everything because that increases the cognitive load and makes people slow because they are focused on things that they shouldn't be focused on when they should be clearly focusing on delivering value to paying customers as product engineers, right? So where SRE focuses specifically on reliability, platform engineering is broader. It covers infrastructure, developer tooling, shared product capabilities, data, and the edge. Reliability is part of it, but it's one piece of a bigger picture. The strength of platform engineering is the product mindset. So you're not just running infrastructure, you're building something that your engineers actually want to use, and you're sort of like measuring whether they're using it, tracking platform adoption, platform whether the tools you're building are making them happy, and if they're not, rethinking the offerings and tooling that you have to make engineers be happier, be more productive, ship faster, all of that stuff. So that's why I was saying applying product thinking, right? So here's where it gets interesting. These three disciplines overlap a lot in practice. So a platform engineer might do work that looks like DevOps. An SRE might build internal tools that looks like platform engineering. And a DevOps engineer might be responsible for reliability in a way that looks like SRE. The cleanest way I've come to think about this is this. DevOps is the cultural foundation, right? It's the principle that Dev and Ops collaborate, that we automate, and that we move fast with shared ownership. That is DevOps. SRE is a specialized principle or a specialized discipline focused on reliability. So it applies engineering rigor to keeping systems running well. That is SRE. Platform engineering is newer, like I've said before, and it is the broader product approach to building for internal users. It includes reliability, includes tooling, includes infrastructure, and treats all of it as a product. You can have all three coexisting in a company. In fact, in larger companies, you usually do, right? Platform engineering teams, SRE teams, and DevOps practices working together. It's very normal to have all three. They are not competing concepts, they're different lenses on the same underlying goal, right? Which is, at the end of the day, to make engineering organizations more effective. Here's my honest take after years of doing this work. DevOps as a culture is still important and isn't going anywhere. The principle of shared responsibility is very foundational at the end of the day, if we're being very honest, right? SRE as a discipline is going to keep growing because reliability matters more as systems get more complex, as we're shipping to different regions, especially with AI agents acting inside production systems. But platform engineering is the framing that has the most room to grow right now. This isn't something we've done in the past. This is something we're beginning to do. So things like, the product mindset, the idea that your engineers are customers, the focus on developer experience as a real outcome you measure, that's the shifts that is reshaping how engineering orgs operate in 2026. So it's worth thinking about when you're thinking about all these different disciplines. So if you're trying to decide where your focus should be in your career as an engineer, all three are great choices, to be honest. But if you're betting on where the biggest gap is right now, honestly, I will bet on platform engineering. The demand is high, the work is interesting, and the discipline is still young enough, right, that you can shape what it becomes. This is very important, especially at this stage of platform engineering now in the industry. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next video. Bye.